Hey friends, I'm Jasmine or Jazz, aka Jazzy Jet Sets on all social media platforms, and welcome back to my channel. I've been getting a lot of questions about what I'm doing in South Africa, how I relocated here, and how I even got introduced to the African continent in the first place. So I thought that would be a great idea to do an introductory video to tell you all a little bit more about myself. So let's dig in. So I am a Black American. I'm originally from Trenton, New Jersey. And if you know anything about Trenton, you know there's a huge Liberian population that lives there. So my first introduction to African culture, my first African dish, my first, hearing my first African language. Listen, my first jollof rice was from a Liberian woman who I called Mama Maddie. And I didn't know much about it. I just knew I loved the food, I loved the music, and I loved Mama Maddie, and that was enough for me. I mean, I loved her son too, but that's a whole nother story. So that was my real first introduction to the continent. I mean, I knew some students from school, but I didn't really know much about their culture. So I went to Trenton Central High School, shout out to the tornado. I graduated and got accepted into Spelman College, where I spent the next 4 years in Atlanta studying economics. Now, as you would imagine, I interacted with many people across the diaspora while I was attending Spelman because it is a historically Black college/university. Well, the number one HBCU to be exact. And after undergrad or university for my international people, I went into banking for the next 5 years. I was in corporate banking and public finance, which was just lending to governments and nonprofits. And I did that in the Washington, D.C. area. I lived in D.C. for a few years. It was one of the best experiences. I love D.C. And there's a huge international community from all around the world, but definitely from a lot of African countries. So I feel like that was also another small introduction or taste to different African cultures while I lived in D.C., but it was still much more on a surface level. So after about 5 years in banking, like many people on that path, I started thinking about my next step, which was most likely going to be to go get my MBA. And I had decided that I wanted to go abroad before committing to a 2-year program, because my first time traveling outside of the country didn't happen until I was a junior at Spelman. I didn't get an opportunity to study abroad while I was at Spelman, and I also knew having international experience on my resume would make my business school application much stronger. So I thought it would be a win-win all around. So applying to the Princeton Africa program is really what got me into some extensive research about Africa. I was learning about it geographically, economically, socially. So that was my real first deep dive into the continent. I just want to pause and say that as a Black American, you are not taught, and especially depending on what school you go to, I'm a public school kid, you don't really learn a lot about the continent for real, unless you go and learn it for yourself. And so that's what Princeton in Africa kind of like forced me to do. This very like white organization, unfortunately at the time, kind of forced me to like learn more about Africa on my own and figure things out. So I got accepted into this program. I had never been to the continent before, and I packed my bags and I left. I'm sure that my family and my friends all thought that I was crazy, but they all sent me off with love anyway, so I appreciate them all. But yeah, I packed my bags and landed in Kampala, Uganda. The best part of my experience was just living in Kampala, going to work every day with my Ugandan coworkers who were teaching me stuff, and who I was trying to teach them stuff, but they were like, girl, we don't want that Western influence. Experience. And mind you, I was just starting to travel more and thought I was Miss Thing, but living in Kampala is when I really started traveling. I mean, I was catching buses to Rwanda and Kenya. It's crazy, I know, but when you're young, you do some wild stuff. I visited Zanzibar, I visited Tanzania, I went to Rwanda, I went to Ghana for the first time. I met WizKid while I was in Ghana for the first time back in like 2015 or 2016. Very random. Shout out to my Spelman sister that's in Ghana. She's really that girl. I had such a great experience in Kampala that by the time I left, I knew that I was coming back to the continent for a much longer term. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, but I knew I was gonna come back. And while I was in Uganda, I applied to business school. I got in, was able to secure a scholarship through the consortium. So shout out to everybody who's part of the consortium. Business school for me grew my experience and understanding of African culture. A lot of the students who were Black at Darden when I was there were from the continent or first generation African students. Some of them were also from the Caribbean. So that really gave me an opportunity to learn a lot more about Nigerian culture, Ghanaian culture. I had the opportunity to visit those places while I was there because I was just tagging along to people's home/family trips in December. I even have a video of when I was in business school, and I think I was in Sri Lanka talking big shit like I am not supposed to live in America. I am definitely going to be abroad. I don't know where I'm gonna be yet, but that's where I'm gonna be. Look at me now.
I don't belong in the US. Like, I belong abroad. Like, on some continent, in some country, probably changing every other month to a year. But I definitely don't belong in the US. I'm just too magical for that. I don't.
While I was there, I thought that I wanted to do impact investing. I hadn't done that in Uganda, but I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I tried to set myself on a path for that. And so while I was at Darden, I got all this advice from career services and professors that I should go into investment banking for a few years to get into impact investing. Let me tell you something. I did investment banking for one summer. It's the worst 7 weeks of my life. I told myself I'll figure out another way to get into impact investing, only to realize that I didn't even really want to do impact investing. I was more interested in just doing work that was around impact, which worked out really well because I ended up getting a full-time offer with this organization called the Bridgespan Group. It's a really cool organization. They're a nonprofit, but they're a consulting firm, and they do consulting for nonprofits, NGOs, impact investors, funders. So yeah, I joined their firm as a consultant right after business school. The organization, when I joined it, they only had offices in the States and in India. And I remember when I was in my interview, speaking to two partners, I asked them if they planned on opening offices anywhere on the continent because there are probably organizations that could also use some of their consulting help. And the partners were like, you know, we have been thinking about expanding into some new places. Maybe you can help us one day if you get hired. And I did get hired, and 6 months later, there was an email announcement like, who wants to go help open the office in South Africa? And your girl was the first one in line raising her hand. And that is really how I got to South Africa. Those plans were already well in the works at the time of my interview, but it just really goes to show you that you will definitely end up where you're supposed to end up. But yeah, I've been in South Africa for almost 3 years now, and I will say I love it here. I love Mzansi. So one of the other things that I'm doing, and really the purpose of me starting this YouTube channel, is to be able to connect the diaspora by showing how similar we are to each other, connect with people who want to travel throughout Africa, connect with people who might feel like they want to live here at some point. So yeah, if any of these things are of interest to you, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.